get started. All right. Welcome so much. We're so excited to have all of you here. Nader and I have been working on this for a couple months now and really excited to share some of these different things. Really talking about how do we change ourselves? A lot of times we were talking about leadership. We're talking about how do we deal with other people? And that's important. But a lot of times what we forget and we neglect is we need to be the people that first of all, deserve to be followed, and second of all, that we really have that confidence in ourselves that we are someone that can really help and influence and give to others. And so we're talking about different things around mindset and self-care and other things that we need to be thinking about so that we can be the people who we want to be and who we need to be so that we can influence and bless and impact others as well. No matter what realm of our lives we're talking about, certainly in our careers, in our families, in our communities, and other ways. And so I'm going to share my screen real quick and just kind of kick it off here, and then we're going to turn it over to Nader in just a moment. But can I get some thumbs up and make sure everyone can see this okay? All right, thank you. So you registered for this, how to grow your personal leadership for engineering career success. We're going to talk about leading yourself first. And so one of the things that I'm going to do whenever I'm presenting, I do something called quick chat. And so all this is just a way for us to engage via the chat function here on Zoom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question. And I want you to type your answer into the chat box, but don't actually press enter to submit it until I do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And what that allows us to do is so you don't feel like that awkward one person who actually responds when we ask a question. But we get all the responses coming in simultaneously, okay? So I'm curious, I know we have an international audience here. So I'm curious, where are you joining us from? Tell us where you're at. And again, type it into the chat, and then we'll do a countdown in just a moment. And we'll see all these different answers streaming through, okay? It's always fun to see where people are at. So go ahead and type that in and then press enter in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. We got California, Utah, New Zealand, Bay Area, Texas, USA, Toronto, Canada, Ghana, East Bay, California, Sydney, Australia, Iran, Denver, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Man, some of these places, I'm not sure what time it is for you, but thanks for being here. If it's the middle of the night in Iran, thanks for being here, Cheyenne. But so excited to have all of you here and join here with us. So just to kind of set the expectation as we get started here, is just to be present. Okay, we've put a lot of time and effort into this, and you've also come here and seeking to give us this time and really try and get something out of it. And we want to do everything we can to help you get the most out of this time that you've given us. So just the invitation is to engage with the group, put the cell phone away, unless that's what you're using to tune in, right? Close other browsers and other distractions, and actively participate, take notes, and see what you discover. Try and come away with some action that you can take to do something differently from what you learned tonight. Okay, and just see what happens. Don't just be passive. Be active in your learning and engagement here. Otherwise, what's the point of spending this time? We want you to come away with some actions and some changes that you want to make here. So as we get started, I'm going to do one more of these quick chats. Again, don't press enter until I do the countdown. But the question here is, you obviously came here for something. So why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of this session? If we can understand this, then perhaps Nader and I can adjust some of the things that we talked to. And certainly there's going to be some Q&A and open time at the end. And we want to be here to answer any big questions you have. But we want to just know, what did you come here for? What are you trying to accomplish? Are there big goals you have? Are there changes you're trying to make? What are the things you're hoping to shift here? So type that into the chat. And we want to see those answers in 3, 2, 1, go. Personal growth, leadership skills, just wanted to check it out. Leadership tips, moving up in leadership role, just learning. Meet new people and discuss ideas, great. um, leadership, career development, leadership skills. Not in leadership role yet, but trying to be ready when that comes. Leadership skills, excellent. And like we said earlier, like we're going to talk about some of these things in the context of leadership, but also in the context of self and personal development too. So all these things we're going to talk about can definitely influence your ability to be a leader, and really set a strong foundation for you to build on other skills that you're gonna need to be an effective leader. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Nader, and he's got some great stories and some. And I love this. Tammy says Nader's awesome, and that's also why he's here. He is. So so Nader is awesome, and I'm gonna welcome him. If anyone doesn't know him, he's fabulous, and he's really come a long way, and he's going to tell you a lot of his own story in a very raw and vulnerable way. And hope you take something out of that experience, and see, hey, does any of this apply to you in some of the changes and adjustments and really transformations that you're trying to make here. So I want to turn the time over to him for this next part here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and see me. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Big thanks to everyone for being here. Big thanks to Jeff, obviously, first and foremost, for hosting this event, for being a good friend for such a long time. And, you know, we've always had fun working together, going on podcasts, interviewing each other, sharing leads, growing our network together, whatever it takes. And you might be surprised because we actually do the exact same thing. You might think like we're competitors, but we actually, we collaborate a lot. And honestly, we have so much love and respect for each other. So it's great to be back here. Looking at the chats here, I see a lot of people are here to improve their leadership skills, to improve their, you know, connections, their network, their career growth. And that's ultimately what this conversation today is about. Where I want to focus a bit more, though, is about personal leadership and self-leadership. And I'm gonna jump right into it and get very close and personal with kind of like painting a scenario for you and sharing my personal story. So I want you to, you know, bear with me for the first 5-6 minutes or so, and just see if this resonates with you. You know, just like Jeff just said. See if it resonates with you. See if it tickles your fancy. If there's anything that you relate to, whether my story comes to you as weird, as common, uncommon, you can relate to it or you cannot relate to it. I want you to kind of like sit back and relax. No need to take notes on this one. I mean, if you want anything that you see on the screen, I can definitely send you a PDF copy of the entire presentation. But I want you to kind of like think like, hey, is this something that relates to me? And how can I apply it in my own life? Even if my story is a little bit different than his or those he's worked with, how can I apply it to mine? So again, I want to talk to you about self-leadership, self-love, and self-care in order to develop our own success. And right off the bat, let me just make sure you guys can see the screen. Perfect. So that was Jeff sending a message. Perfect. So if you have any questions as I'm speaking, you either want to write it down somewhere on your notepad, on your notebook, or feel comfortable putting in the chat box. I won't open the chat box while I'm speaking to, because quite frankly, I'm going to sprint through these 64 slides that we have, and, you know, having a limited time, about 15-20 minutes, so we can get to Jeff's content. He has fantastic content ready to share with you as well. And then towards the end, we'll definitely both take questions and answer any of your concerns. And, you know, off this call, off this session, we can provide you more detailed, guide you in the right direction. But I just wanted to make sure I jump into it and take a deep breath. And I want you to imagine if you died today, went to the hospital, had a surgery, and you died. What would happen to those around you? Because ultimately, you got a doctor is going to come in, inform your family and friends, bring your body down to the morgue, do an autopsy and a postmortem. kind of like figure out what happened to you and what they can learn from that. And surely your family and friends will be devastated, and they might even tell themselves that, wow, I'll never let that happen to me. And that would be a good lesson for them, for everyone, but just not you. For you or anyone in that situation, a much better option to a postmortem is a premortem, sort of like a look at all that could potentially go wrong in life before it actually happens. So I'm here to encourage you and visualize your job as a human being, whether you're a surgeon or an engineer, is to be prepared for what the things are in your life that could throw you off balance, throw you off track. I want you to visualize your job as a human being, as a parent, as a spouse, as a child, as a kid, whoever, however you identify. I want you to be able to see that you got to think about potential problems every day and think of solutions in advance. Be adaptable to change. Be graceful under pressure, because pressure will always be there, but also accept those unpleasant possibilities. And consider, this is on my mom and dad. So again, a lot of you guys may have heard these things from others or other leaders, or, you know, wisdom of the elders, but mom and dad would tell me that consider the worst so you could perform your best. So I grew up with that. And that's what we must do. And that's what you want anyone that you love, that you care about, to do too. For me in particular, as I was going through my 30s, I wish I had done that before letting things get to such a bad point that I literally wanted to take my own life. So I tried to drown myself on January 1st, on New Year's Day, 2013 at 6 a.m. Now, back then, I called myself the island boy, right? I thought I was living a good life, moved out of Canada, went to, you know, the north coast of the Dominican Republic, city of Cabarete. I had a beach house, a nice convertible Toyota MR2, sexy car. I was a luxury home real estate agent working for a company called Coldwell Banker, you know, third largest global realty firm, hanging out with millionaires all day, people who had vacation villas that they wanted to, you know, list or buy or sell, and had too much money to know what to do with. Quite frankly, I lived that Caribbean dream that you might want to take vacations to. I was living that Caribbean dream. Single, you know, good looking, had good money, you know, had a good job, had that, you know, status, attracted a lot of attention to me. And it definitely looked like I was happy, but I wasn't. I was lonely, uncertain about the future, doubtful about my past, anxious about my business, depressed about my career. And that made me angry with myself. I didn't have good relationships with my parents. It's been a while since I'd spoken to my siblings, and I knew I was guilty and I had no one else to blame. Honestly, I was a mess. I had so many opportunities to balance my life out, make improvements, and I just hated myself for ignoring all the signs and symbols. And honestly, I just chose to stay in hiding and not risk being humiliated. So like on that New Year's Eve, you know, I started feeling just really alone in life, began questioning my goals and motives and like, why am I even alive? And got into this crazy binge of, you know, drinking, doing drugs. And like, I was literally up for way more than 24 hours, just like drinking, smoking, snorting, you just name it. It just really filled myself with a lot of shame and resentment and anger and self-doubt. And it literally just only took one night with a lot of negative self-thoughts and negative self-talk to drive myself mad. And I was just so ashamed of myself. Although New Year's was a time for celebration, I ended up making myself feel like a failure. And on the morning, January 1st, 6 a.m., walking, you know, from the beach party and all the craziness back home, I literally decided to go and jump in the ocean. This is during Hurricane Sandy. If you guys remember, it was end of 2012, beginning of 2013, Superstorm Sandy that killed, I still remember, 233 people from literally the Caribbean all the way up to Canada. There were casualties. all it took is just one wave for me to hit the rocks and get knocked out. And if it wasn't because of my friend Chad and, you know, him getting the building security guard, I could be dead right now. And I'm not telling you guys the story to feel bad about me or feel sorry or listen. That's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm sharing the story, because all you guys have, you know, sad, unfortunate stories. I just really want you to know that you as a person must have a self-care emergency routine. So when time gets tough and those life emergencies come at you, you know, like you're anxious, you can't go to sleep at night, you're sleep deprived, you're waking up depressed every single day, you lose your job, you get blindsided by, you know, global news, war, pandemics, losing a friend or a family member, like the stuff that can really break us apart from the inside. I want you guys to make sure you're prepared and have that self-care emergency routine. Because for me, what led to that, it was what led to me leaving Canada and going and pursuing, kind of like free soul life, the island boy life back in 2012 to 2013. Started with a bad breakup, unexpected, lost my job due to just being depressed and not performing well, getting into fights with my family and friends, and just getting a one-way ticket, $270 ticket, leaving the country and just take my savings and just wanted to get away. Like I said earlier, I wanted to hide, and ultimately getting trapped by these drugs and alcohol abuse. And honestly, I just wanted to forget everything. I just wanted to numb myself, forget everything, and everything that I'd done to myself, anything that I didn't like about myself. But again, I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry or anything about me, because I'm different. I'm nobody special. Like, I do know, however, what it's like to live with painful memories, what it's like to panic when life's unfair to you, to have negative thoughts and loud negative emotions in your head, voices in your head. I know what it's like to want to forget things you've done wrong and to feel ashamed of who you've become. I definitely have done all of that. And I know the feeling. Like, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now, just reliving these scenes that I'm visualizing. But again, I'm nobody special. Plenty of other people have bigger problems, and I know so many of them, much bigger challenges that I would never ever want to wish upon anybody. But what I am here to tell you and to make you aware of is that when it comes to transformation, because we're all here, you all told us already, you either want to grow your network, develop your leadership skills, grow your career, you're here to improve. You know, out of the 100 and some people that registered, 36 are here. Maybe like 34. Take Jeff and I out. But like the 34 of you, 34 out of 119 last time I checked, you guys are really serious here. You know, so you want to transform. You care about yourself, at least, to be here. And you might think that willpower is enough, but unfortunately, it is not enough. So that's my primary core message here. It's not easy. It's very difficult to stay positive and keep that level of will and courage up when you're filled with negative thoughts and feelings that are constantly consuming you. For me, what made me transform, though, perhaps it started with willpower, but willpower dissipates all the times. It is about who you're surrounding yourself with, especially people who are on the same mission as you. And there's a very magical way to start, you know, living that better life, changing your habits, living longer and living better, thinking more clearly and doing less things ultimately that you will regret later on. And it really begins by starting to vocalize and talking about what's hurting you. It's about talking about physical, mental, psychological pains and aches that you are experiencing. Ultimately, communication is the solution. When you got thoughts, feelings in your mind, in your heart, and you speak with someone else, those thoughts and those feelings, they begin to reshape and become more understandable, become more comprehensible. So I really want to encourage you and help you understand. It really begins by emptying your mind, emptying your heart, and having someone who trusts you and you trust to have those conversations with. what worked for me was having that, finally finding and getting inside that trusted community of resilient people, having deep conversations with them without being judged, and especially conversations that made me feel loved and accepted. So I want to encourage you that to honestly look at your self-care habits. Because ultimately, again, I'm not here to tell you not to drink or anything, or to change your habits. It's really up to you. It's fine. Like, honestly, I drank for, I think, like 10 years at least, 5 years of that, like literally being an alcoholic. But I also know thousands of people who enjoy life, with a nice glass of wine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to eliminate your bad habits, joining a community of people who have been where you are right now and share the same vision and life values as you is going to be the absolute best option for accountability and sustainability and results. And the best thing you can do here in that type of community is to really speak what you're keeping in your mind and what you're holding in your heart. I want to encourage you to give and get help. Nothing else as a human being will impact you, will transform you better than giving and receiving help. I don't know if any of you have gone through like Alcoholics Anonymous, AA recovery to overcome alcoholism, but one of the common themes there they talk about is about being of service. And it's not just about like making amends or processing guilt and shame. It's actually a very step-by-step, practical, functional, adaptive strategy to keep you on track for transformation. So like focusing on people who have similar, like different problems, and how you can help them prevent making the same mistakes again is ultimately the best way for you to not focus on yours. And often, frankly, you realize that other people have bigger problems than you. So you'll end up coming out of that conversation with a lot more gratitude that you entered. Again, for me, my emergency routine is being a community member and now a community leader. And that's how I've been able to stay away from, drinking and drugs for a very long time and never, ever once relapsed. So emergency routines can be different. You don't have to choose what I chose. What you choose really doesn't matter. It could be reading, it could be writing, journaling, exercising. It's just being in a community that perhaps actually includes all those extra exercises, extra routines, has been the best way that's worked for me. So I'm here to just share with you what has outperformed everything else. So ultimately, again, what matters is that you choose, you take action, you choose to make improvements into your life so that you can have a better career, better connections, better communication, better leadership. And that thing should work for you. So test it, check its results. If it's not, change your emergency routine. So ultimately, the point is that you need to have a plan. Life is going to happen to you whether you like it or not, as it always does. Like, we cannot expect anything otherwise. Life's going to challenge us, trigger us, and kick us around. And all we can do is just to be prepared to respond, to have that good self-care emergency routine when that moment of difficulty arrives. Think about this. Being a community member is literally at the center of our human experience. From the times that we were almost animals, and we realized, created fire, and we gathered around the fire and built a community and started communicating, building tools and help each other grow. Being in a community member is central at our core. And being a part of a group of people who are on the same mission as you, who have the same core values, it really gives you that feeling of belonging, which is at the basis of what we need to survive, to thrive, to be able to share stories, personal stories, pains and aches, thoughts and ideas that we need validation from, and ultimately help each other grow and really support one another. So you may not have an alcohol problem like I used to, or falling into traps of drugs, whether they're prescription drugs, or they could sometimes these days they're actually part of your treatment. They prescribe painkillers or like Ritalin and a lot of prescription drugs like that. It helps you fall into another bigger trap. But we all deal with problems, regardless of your problems, we all deal with problems differently. Some people take that pill. Some people lash out on their spouse. Some people yell at their kid or drink alcohol or smoke cannabis. And many other people have different problems. No matter what those problems are, whenever you try to go at it alone, we often fail to improve or sustain our results. Ultimately, we keep hurting ourselves and hurting the people around us. And if you look at the statistics, like more than 75% of people with mental, neurological, or substance abuse disorders, they actually receive no treatment in their conditions. And that could be anxiety, depression, substance or eating disorders, OCD, ADD, PTSD, regardless of what it is. It could be different than, it doesn't necessarily have to have a label on it, right? Because we feel like sometimes we always want to put a label on it so we can open up the book, Google it, and find a solution for it. But sometimes just basically waking up angry, waking up upset, pissed off at yourself, having relationship issues, fights with your spouse, fights with your children. They're not doing well in school, they're homeschooling, whatever it is, dealing with all these changes that we're going through, with the environment, with the masks, with the mandates, with the vaccines. We all have different problems, but we all deal with them differently as well. So emergency self-care routine is what I'm encouraging you to consider. And ultimately, the worst of all for me, for a lot that I've spoken to, last 12 years of coaching and consulting, is dealing with that fear, dealing with that guilt, dealing with that anger, dealing with the anxiety. And making those changes, improvements become really difficult. A lot of cases impossible in my situation, certainly, when you are alone in that process. So ultimately, having gone successfully through those processes, spending multiple years successfully and consistently being a member of a community and transitioning to leading communities, I've developed the same kind of it's really been my vision since I started seeing results in the community that I was in, that I still am, and I'll introduce you to that community later on. It's always been my vision to create the same results because I feel like it's now my duty. It's been my responsibility, like an obligation, that I got so much from the community that I was in. Now I need to give back. I just know too many people. As a coach, I speak with so many people. I consult with them and coach with them, and I listen to their pain. I listen to what they're going through. A lot of you guys, if not all of you, are here because you need to solve a problem. You have a challenge to overcome. So being on this side and not being able to help is really painful. So finally, I've got to a point in terms of knowledge, wisdom, experience, tools, technologies, elsewhere, support, that I'll be able to create that community for my network on LinkedIn, those that have problems, that are going through hard times and want support, want help in improving theirs. So very soon on April 1st, I'm going to launch sort of my own self-care community. And together we can really get around our virtual roundtable, ultimately not to be coached, but to have an avenue for sharing what's in our heart, what's in our mind, the things that are giving us headaches and heartaches. And I've called this the self-care leadership, or selfcareleadership.com. I want to take a couple of, maybe 1 minute to tell you what it is. And then I'll pass on the mic to Jeff. Let's get him to continue and tell what he's going to talk us about, because there's a lot of similarities between our content and what he's going to be talking about in terms of mindset development. And again, at the end of the presentation, I'll be able to answer any more questions and kind of get anyone who's interested on a waiting list. So when we launch, you can be part of that community, part of that movement. And first thing I want you to know, you're probably thinking, what's it like to join here? Definitely free to join this community. It's a passion project of mine, followed by a lot of drive and motivation and inspiration, energy that I've been getting, love that I've been receiving from my community, my coach, that I want to start giving out. So being part of that community, to write and read and watch and listen, share and story and engage, it's all going to be free. Give and receive support from community members, and obviously for myself, it's going to be free. it's not a web-based. Well, it is web-based as well, but primarily you want to have a smartphone, whether iOS or Android, to have access to the app. Now, as we go through the launch phase, as I gather requests and ideas from what you guys really want from this community, I'll be having some live events as well. A few ideas that I have that I've got from my coach has been to be able to take a walk and talk to those who are experiencing heartache, those that I want to get around the round table and have common discussions, build a network, listen to other people's story, and just really can go through that recovery, get things out of your mind, out of your head, whether that's through a conversation or exercise or meditation or breath work. I want to be able to give you exactly what was given to you, what would work for me in terms of be somewhere that people can listen to you with love, with respect, and with no judgment. And there'll be a subscription for that. However, anyone who attends any of these presentations starting today, obviously get a 3 months free access, and would love to get a lot of input so I can build this community further. And last but not least, I want to let you guys know that this is not a social media platform. There is an application process to join, and you can, if you choose, you can be fully private and anonymous, so you can comfortably share the stories, thoughts, ideas without feeling shy or fearing judgment. So ultimately, this community is for someone who knows has a problem, wants to change, wants to improve, but just doesn't know where to start, doesn't know who to approach. And I want to be that person that you can lean on, whether I can listen to you, because I know I'm a good listener, share your thoughts, share your energy, share your feelings, guide you in the right direction if I can, although my goal is not to listen to you and tell you what to do. That's not what the purpose of this community is. It's just to support one another and honestly, like, create friendships. And if I cannot understand or find resources for you, I can tap into my coach, my community, and provide avenues for you to find resolutions to your challenges. So in my vision, I see a world where people are connecting and communicating with each other with love, care, kindness, and respect. A world where we have the courage to help ourselves and have faith in our ability to improve. And ultimately, a world where we are grateful for what we have and remain optimistic for what we can gain. Now, with that said, I want to really welcome everybody to join this movement with me. And let's take care of each other, because, man, there's nothing better than that. There's no better feeling of fulfillment when you help someone else, you give them love and respect, you have faith that they're going to do better. And regardless of what happens, you're grateful for the friendships you have created. Last but not least, again, I want to quickly thank everyone for being here. Pretty sure we're all connected on LinkedIn, so you can always approach me on LinkedIn or email me directly. I also have a link here. This is my coach's website, his community. If you guys also want to see like where I come from, what kind of training, what kind of community involvement I have, and you want to talk to me about that, feel comfortable to do so. Feel comfortable to obviously join. And it'll be great to see you there as well. But April 1st, I've got a few more days to work on the stuff in the back end. After today, I'd love to see who's interested. So ultimately, whatever the challenges are that you're facing, I'd be there to listen to you, to show you other examples of success, and together we can build a community, have friendly conversations with no judgment, so we can get you through whatever it is that you're going through. Because I went through 15 years of smoking cigarettes, a decade of smoking cannabis, 5 years of drinking alcohol, just six months of just balls to the wall, going after hard drugs. I did everything you can possibly think. It only took one community to fix it all. So with that said, again, thank you so much for listening to me. Sorry if I took too much time. I tried to sprint through that as fast as I possibly could, but I appreciate you being here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, pass the mic to Jeff.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Nader, for being so vulnerable and open with us, and everyone for being there. And in fact, it's interesting. Just today, I wrote a blog post and shared a video about the principle of community and who you surround yourself with, and connected the social proximity principle, which is the influence we have in the people that we're close to in our lives, like Newton's law of gravitation, which a lot of engineers and scientists are here. And the principle is that the closer we are to people, the more influence they have on us. Just like how the closer you are to an object, the more the gravitational pull is. And that's so true, and why these communities and these connections that we build and with people in our lives are so important for the changes we want to make. So thanks for sharing that, and certainly encourage anyone if they feel like that's something that they would need to engage more. And so share whatever those links are in the chat there, now and later if people are interested in Nader. But we're going to shift here, and I'm not going to be quite as deep and talk about death, but I do want to address some similar things today in this principle of personal change, and we're talking about becoming the people that we want to become. And I want to take a different angle, and we're really gonna I hope this opens you up to some new ideas. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see this frustrated little toy guy here? All right. So so just think about here whether it's situations similar to what Nader was talking about, or other things like this feeling of like, I'm frustrated. I know that there's some changes I want to make in my life, but I don't know how to make this happen. These can be changes in our habits, our health, our career, our relationships and our families, our communities. And, I think back to a few years ago, and I certainly feel this way all the time in different areas of my life, and I find different ways to make those shifts. But a lot of times, but I've also realized that I've changed my approach to change. Okay, and needed to do this. A few years ago, what I tried to do was I kept trying to prescribe behaviors and things I needed to do differently. And whether this was grass was greener on the other side if I changed my career situation, whether this was other, in financial investments, if I need to be in a different house, or I need to have a different car, or I need to change the teams, the people that I had on my team, and how they behaved and acted. And I always felt like the exterior results or the things and the behaviors was what needed to change. And yet I kept feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, and frustrated. And the changes that I was hoping would stick didn't stick in my life when we think about some of the health goals I had, some of my spirituality, things I wanted to do, some of my relationships, and some of my career aspirations, until I realized that what I really needed to change was not my circumstances, was not just the things that I did. What I needed to change was me. My mindsets, my beliefs, who I am, okay, and who I continue to become. And so realizing, this goes back to the self-leadership idea, when I could become the person I wanted to be, then that would start actually changing outcomes. And more than that, it would change how I felt about whatever outcomes that would happen, and bring that satisfaction. So just to give a visual to this is a lot of times, this is how I was seeking to change, and how many of us think to do. We're like, hey, this is where I'm at right now, current set of results, but I've got a new target, a new set of goals here, right? And so we start changing those actions and behaviors to point towards, this is what I need to do differently, right? We start prescribing, these different skills we need to have. Maybe I need to get this degree, or maybe I need to go through this program, whatever. And these aren't all bad things. A lot of times they're really good, but if they're not things that also address what's underneath that mindset, then we're neglecting what's actually driving everything. And so this mindset can act like a tether and pull those actions and behaviors back to where we were before, and not really make sustainable change. And so this is a quote from the McKinsey Research Group, talked about organizational change, but I think this can absolutely apply to individuals, saying half of all efforts to transform organizational performance fail either because senior managers don't act as role models for change, or because people in the organization defend the status quo. Okay? So if we don't change our mindsets personally, and change that we want to make personally, our mindsets are trying to pull us back, defend the status quo. We think organizationally, as you have leadership opportunities, if you don't address also the mindset and the beliefs of the people that you're leading, in addition to the new actions you need to take, it's not going to be sustainable change that you're trying to enact in your team or the organization. Okay? It pulls us back. So if instead, actually, we can shift the mindset, then our actions and behaviors can then follow along and point towards this new desired result. So change truly starts with our mindset. We can characterize mindset in a few different ways, like our set of attitudes or beliefs that we hold, how we view people, how we kind of see things, people, challenges, and in the environments that we're in. And another way to just to think about like the belief that orients the different ways that we handle situations that we're in, how we sort out what's going on, and what we should do, right? Another way to think about it is the lens that we see the world. And if we have negative mindsets, then we're seeing things in a distorted way. We're not even seeing reality. When we can shift our mindsets, we can see the true picture of what's really there in front of us. Another way to think about it, it's almost like an operating system where there's an input. Even if the right input comes in, if it runs through the wrong software, then the output might be negative. Think about that from a computer perspective. I type in A on my computer, and out comes the dollar sign or something instead. Not what I expected. That can happen if we're not seeing reality and have the right mindset. So continue that quote from earlier. If companies can identify, and I'm going to say, and also insert companies or individuals can identify and address pervasive mindsets at the outset, and they're talking about of a change initiative, they are 4 times more likely to succeed in change efforts than are companies or individuals that overlook this stage. 4 times more likely, 400%. This is huge. So we can't neglect this, but the great challenge is that we often can't see the truth about our own mindsets. We're often not aware of that. It's extremely common for us to think that our mindsets are more positive than they truly are. And so we can try and assess ourselves, but often it's necessary for others to help us see things that we can't see and tell us the true state of our mindsets. And there's different mindsets we can be thinking of. Probably the most popular one or most well-known is the fixed to growth mindset idea, made really popular by the work of Carol Dweck, a prominent researcher, wrote a book about this. One of the most popular TED Talks of all time, and it's excellent, and I highly recommend you go look into this. But there are other mindsets too, and different things here. Fixed and growth is more about do I believe that I can change and that other people can change, or do I think that who I am is kind of who I'm always going to be? That's more the fixed mindset if we believe that. And we don't have time to go deep into all these. We're actually going to talk about just one of these in particular, the inward outward. We're going to talk about this, and because this is the most relationship based. And in the end, we just need to, the changing our mindsets is not something that can happen overnight necessarily. But what we can do in an instant is decide that we want to change, to try and move the needle, because small changes, small actions can actually have great effects in our life. And when we work on these things, what we're actually doing is improving neural connections in our minds and our brains, rewiring our brains. And so think about this. I love this quote, that you're essentially one decision away that you could make in an instant from a huge amount of change in your life. Okay, so let's talk about one of these mindset ideas and inward versus outward. So I want you to think about this and how this might apply to you. Where might you be on this scale? So someone with an inward mindset, and this is me all too often, is someone who's self-focused. When I see people, when I'm looking at any of you, I might see you as an object. I might see you as a vehicle to reach some of my goals, maybe to get something done, or maybe just see you, hey, maybe this is a potential coaching client that I can get some money out of. Okay? If I'm very inward, I could think about this. I could see people as obstacles. They're in my way from reaching one of my goals. They're wasting my time or other things. Or I can see people in that I interact with as just completely irrelevant. I just don't care. And so an example I might have, and sometimes we can even see this with people that we love the most. that we can have these feelings. You might know that you're feeling inward if I have a feeling that I should help someone and then I don't. Perfect example, last night I've got a 1-year-old, and he was crying in the middle of the night about 1 or 2 a.m. Lasted for about an hour, and I heard that, and I just sort of waited it out, hoping that my wife would get up instead. It was a very inward, selfish thing to do. I felt that, hey, I should get up and do this, and then I didn't. Now, eventually she came in when he woke up for the 3rd or 4th time and said, hey, can you please do that? And I said yes. But I could have been the better person in that situation and acted differently, and I didn't in that case. So that's an example there. Okay. And one metaphor we can think about inward is that we're in a box. We don't see the reality. We don't see the truth about other people because all we see and we care about is ourselves. Okay. But the shift there is if we can be more outward, focused on other people rather than ourselves. And instead, we truly see people as people that matter like we matter. We see ourselves on equal footing with those around us, not above or below, but on equal footing because we're fellow humans in this world. And we're more focused on helping others be successful rather than, just reaching our own goals. And there's a lot that we said, we talk about the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. But think about this, the next step, I've heard it called the platinum rule, that we treat others the way that they want to be treated, which means that we need to know, we need to care about what they want and what they value, right? And so, so just think about this for you, like do one of these quick chats. And if you weren't here earlier when I was explaining this, we're just going to type the answer in the chat and then we'll do a countdown when you press enter and watch all the responses come in simultaneously. So the question here is overall, thinking about this inward to outward, we all have some of both, but where would you consider yourself? And really reflect on this and consider where might you be? So type in and be honest with yourself, a little bit of self-evaluation. And we'll do a countdown in 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, plenty of both. Yeah, someone even went, broke it down in percentages. And the context changes. We can be more inward and outward with different people in our lives, depending on how we feel about them, right? So it changes in context too. And so I want to just give you a few ideas to think about for reflection. Do I see people as objects or as people that matter like I matter? Is my focus where I'm thinking about most of the time to help myself or to help others more? Do I believe that others are doing the best that they can? Or am I judging them? Okay, do others, and if you could put yourself in the shoes of others, do others feel that I truly care about them? Okay, these are ways for you to think about this. You can do some journaling activities. Maybe spend some time making a list of people that make you feel your best or that are very helpful for you. These are people who you feel are very outward in their lives and you're saying, hey, I really appreciate these people. And what is it that they do that makes you feel that way? And maybe think about what can I do to be more like that? Think about these shifts and changes. If you're working, thinking about your career and applications, you can think about how can I shift to be more outward with my team or employees if you're a leader. And one way is to visualize, picture in your mind the people who depend on you in your life. What are their concerns, challenges, and fears? If you don't know that, you should ask them. What do they want and hope for? And then ask yourself, who do they need me to be today so I can be most helpful? And then picture yourself, visualize for just a moment, being the person that they deserve you to be. And commit to being that person for them. But it's going back to this, who do you need to be? Not necessarily what you need to do, but who you need to be in service and helpful for other people. And one of the things here we talked about, this platinum rule, or like really understanding their concerns and challenges, is just to seek to understand where people are at and what they need. I think we've missed doing that a little bit, because a lot of times when we're talking about challenges or people are like, hey, there's some miscommunication here, right? like we feel disconnected. If we're working remote or we don't know, we feel like we're left out of something or whatever. And that's because, like, hey, a lot of the communication that actually happens, only, less than 10% of that is actually the words that we say when we're texting someone or writing an email. But so much else is the tone of our voice and how we say it. Then also body movements, face, arms, body posture, facial expressions, everything else. So there's so much more to communication than just the words we say. But often we lack this data. And when we lack data, as Brene Brown says, in the absence of data, we will always make up stories. In fact, we need to make up the story, especially when we're hurt. We feel like someone wronged us. It's part of our most primitive survival wiring. And so we're trying to, mean making is in our biology, and our default is often to come up with a story that makes sense, feels familiar, and offers an insight how to best self-protect. Right? How often that. So the thing is, if we don't have that data, we're often making up stories, and often that helps us feel better and puts other people down. But the antithesis of this is to seek first to understand, as Dr. Stephen Covey says, then to be understood. We need to understand first. It helps us focus our communication, helps other people feel seen and heard and valued, just like we want, right? We want other people to see us and understand us, but we need, as leaders, we need to lead out and do that first, right? It's going to help us make better decisions because we're understanding the truth of how other people are feeling and thinking and needing. And in the end, it's going to help us save time and build true, meaningful relationships. So ask more questions and get more data to understand that full reality. Get really curious. I love this word, to get curious about other people instead of judgmental or making assumptions. We just get curious and really try to seek to understand them. Ask about their goals, challenges, and needs. What's their reality? How are you impacting them? And then think, where can I help? Right? So just a quick summary is that we're thinking about the changes we want to make is that instead of thinking that everything external needs to change, in the end it's us that needs to change. And it's driven by our mindsets that drive our behavior, which then drives our results. And if we can shift a little bit more towards that outward thinking of others, it means we see people as people. And as leaders, we're talking about we need to lead out. Okay? Not waiting for someone else to understand and see and hear us, but we can lead out by seeking to understand others, asking meaningful questions, and, by the way, listening. I like to say we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and do a little bit more listening. And I know I can certainly do that. And so as we wrap here, just want to, we've talked about a lot of different things here. So just do another quick chat here and hear what you thought. Nader talked about a lot of different things. I've shared a lot of different things. But we just want to know, like, what's your biggest takeaway from this session? We've heard a lot of things, but what are you going to do differently? What action are you going to take? What steps are you going to take here? Love to hear that. So type your answers into the chat here, and then press enter in 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah. So John's saying, change from inward to outward, create an emergency route. Very good. And outward behavior to the others. Work on that self-emergency plan, that self-care emergency routines. Try to be more proactive, more outward. Yeah, a lot of great ideas here. And so, we've talked about a lot of things, giving you some ideas and some things here. So the question is, are you all good from here? Like maybe yes and no. We shared a lot of things that can honestly be transformational tonight. But I like this quote from Warren Buffett, one of the richest men alive and investing guru. He could explain investing in one sentence: buy low, sell high, and only invest in things you understand. That's his philosophy. It's not that complicated, but it's the details of actually doing that make the difference, and why he's able to do that. And so people who are truly committed to finding the answers and making these changes, those are the ones that really succeed. And even when things aren't looking great, they've got challenges, they've got struggles, and even if there's some investment, so if that's a community to invest in or some other program or getting some extra help, That's what I've done. That's what Nader's done. That so many ambitious engineers have done. And so if you want to truly shift your mindset, I'd love to connect with you personally. And this is all I'm going to say. I want to talk with you as an individual and see what are the changes that you want to make. And I want to open myself to a free call that you can schedule here by going to this link above. And what we're going to do is we're going to work together to uncover your biggest opportunity for change. And then we can work on creating a customized program to assess your current state and walk through a structured process to shift your mindsets to create the sustainable outcomes that you're really looking for. Okay, so I'm going to share this link here in the chat so you can grab it. If anyone wants to schedule some time with me, I'd love to chat with you one-on-one. It's free. Just want to talk to you and connect with you if you want to really dive deeper into these ideas and make a shift. So again, thanks so much for being here. That's all I have, and we want to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to stop sharing here, and we just want to talk to you. If you've got questions from Nader or I or both on any of these topics, I know they feel connected in some ways, disconnected in other ways, but really we just both come from this place of really wanting to serve and help you in any ways we can. So any questions and things that you're working on that we can help with here tonight?
I want to take a quick second and thank you, Jeff, for your content. And I hadn't seen what you're going to present, but I love the fact that there was quite a few common themes in terms of like being outwards and supporting others, being of service, like giving help. So I love that. And especially communication was also another theme. We got to communicate, we got to understand, we got to listen, because my vision is exactly that, to spend more time listening, creating that community where we can where I and other leaders can listen. It really, it's like, if you look at the 80-20 rule, like the first 80% is just listening, quite frankly, when it comes to, because a lot of times when I coach someone, even I don't have to actually say anything. Just listening to them, to the person speaking, it gives them the opportunity to hear themselves as they narrate the challenge. And it's a lot of times a perceived challenge. They think they have a problem and they get to speak with me. So they get to speak with someone. Quite frankly, a lot of times it's like for the first time they get to speak with someone. And as they're speaking about that problem, they realize that it's not really a problem. They find a solution to it themselves. So listening is powerful. It's really, really powerful.
So at this point, we just want to listen to you. What are your questions and things that you're trying to figure out that we can help you with? And thanks, John, for your note. We're so glad you were able to be here. If you have a question, you can unmute or you can share in the chat.
I'd love for you to answer. Sangwoo asks, do you think inward and outward and introvert and extrovert are exchangeable terms?
Oh, so those are quite different. And that's actually when people first learn about the ideas of inward and outward, they can think about that. And no, they are not interchangeable. They're quite different. In fact, I find that a lot of times we expect, or sometimes the most common leader, and there's even research around this, that the loudest people, the people that speak up the most, typically extroverts, are the ones that most often tend to become leaders or get into management positions. Okay. But I've found that often it's the introverts who actually spend that time listening and connecting and caring about others. So introvert extrovert is much more around how you get your energy, how you recharge. Some people it's being around others. Some people it's having that solace and quiet time. And I think we all have some of both in all of us, and we all need some time with connection with people and time alone. No matter where we're at on the introvert extrovert scale, but inward outward is something that is more about how you care and serve and see people. It's not about you and how you get energy. It's how you see and visualize and relate with anyone that you interact with in your life. It's very different. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Brian is asking, can your work environment influence you in being inward or outward?
Yeah, it can absolutely influence. Just like any environment, and we were talking about being a part of community or the people that we surround ourselves with, can have huge influence on us. But they certainly don't force us one way or the other. I like to say that people or environments can invite us to be one way or the other. Okay, and we can do the same. And because these attitudes, these mindsets can be contagious in a way, whether on the positive or the negative side. You think about someone who's very inward, who's very self-focused, and they're all about them, and they're pushing you, pushing you, pushing you. A lot of times we push right back, like because we're invited to do that. We don't appreciate that. We don't feel heard and loved and seen. We don't have to do that. We can still step back and take an outward approach and think, okay, maybe this person has something going on, or and give them the benefit of the doubt, or assume that people are doing the best they can. That's a much more outward way to look at it. But you think about how much easier it is when we have leaders or people in our lives who we can tell truly care about us, how much easier it is to be more outward and caring for them because they've extended that first. So that's the invitation for us to be more aware of those situations in our lives and be the ones who are inviting others to be more on that outward side because of the people that we are. Right? That's the shift that we're trying to make. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, another one. Can you give maybe like one more example? Fireheart says, how can you be more outward? So perhaps like an example of proactive action we can take on a daily basis to actually like practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about on the on the awareness side, we're trying to catch ourselves, right? So the I shared that quote from Brene Brown: "In the absence of data, we make up stories." So ask yourself in the moment when someone does something or says something to you, um, ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling right now? Is that positive, negative? Is that inward or outward towards this person? How am I feeling towards them? Ask yourself that question, and then start to say, okay, even if it's not something that you appreciated, and you can kind of see yourself going down that path. Sometimes we can identify what are some of these red flags or things that might indicate for me that I might be outward, some of these feelings, some of these judgments we might start making about someone. If that becomes a case, we can become aware of that. Then suddenly, instead of just going with that train, so that's first. This step of awareness is critical, where usually our mindsets just take us wherever they're going to take us. But the shifting process begins by being aware. Suddenly we can question whether or not we need to go. We become the observer of our thoughts and feelings rather than being owned by them. And then we can shift towards, oh, this is where I want to go. Can I think about them a little bit differently, and respond differently in accordance with that? So we shift our beliefs, which then shifts our behaviors. And the crazy thing is that we can often do the exact same behavior, right? We can even say the exact same words, but it feels completely different to us and the people we're interacting with, depending on the mindset we're taking towards them. You can feel that from other people. People can feel that from you, right? So
Cool.
hopefully,
It's one last question. This one's, I guess, for me, like couple of questions here. A couple of individuals asking how to develop a self-care emergency routine.
mm-hmm.
So what I'll tell you for now, if you want to kind of like write this down or make it a brain tattoo, as Robin Sharma would say, people are the path. It's people. So it's who do you surround yourself with? Where do you find the right community? How do you qualify the people in that community to ensure that they are on the same mission as you? They've been where you've been. They have a similar vision for their life and share the same core values. So as they pursue their path in life, core values, I like to define them as rules they will not break. So who are those people that are aligned with you, and now they've gathered and built a community that is in full resonance with you, that is frequent, like that is vibrating at the same frequency as you. you got to be able to experience different communities to see how you feel, what you hear, what you observe. So my vision, having gone through a community like that, that has 11,700 plus members in it right now. Mine right now has none, has me, it's just me. So April 1st, perhaps we'll get a couple of more guys in there. But my vision for that is also to create it from the ground up. So planting a seed and growing it, watering it every day, and have your input and your needs and wants as sort of an organic fertilizer, right? Mm-hmm. To make sure we grow together. But I have a ton of experience and role models and just seeing what works and what doesn't work, which obviously I'll be implementing. I have been implementing, and you'll notice when the launch comes. But you just want to get into those communities, Don't be too picky in terms of what community you get into. And there's also not one community you can get into 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and start to eliminate those that don't vibe with you, and start getting involved with those that you do. Mm-hmm. So definitely reach out and let me know of your interest, so I can get whoever is interested in a waiting list. And this will be an opportunity for us to speak and connect on a daily basis, meet on a weekly basis, and be there for each other, again, to listen, to communicate, to give and get help.
Yeah, very good. And just to connect it back to the mindset idea, and someone was asking, hey, can my work environment affect our mindsets? Absolutely. I mean, being a part of a community like that, the people who are more outward, seeking to help and support one another, that influences our own mindsets, because we're surrounded by that. We feel that, and it shifts us over time. And that's one of many great things that we can do to help shift our mindsets that we're trying to do. Now, John, I see he's asking this question: are organizations better off if employees are more inward or outward? And are there statistics to show what companies are more successful? There's some data. So the actual inward-outward concept comes from a group called the Arbinger Institute, based it's a consulting company out of Utah. And so I borrowed the concepts from them. There's some great books, and they have all sorts of and they were the first ones that I sort of were the introduction to me into learning mindsets over 5 years ago, and the principles of these things. And so they've got all sorts of data that they've run through companies. And interesting, when I was talking earlier about the data around, or just the principle around how often we're kind of blind to our own mindsets, or we're not even aware of our own mindsets. They've now studied hundreds of companies and thousands of people, and almost every time there is a gap when they ask people to rate themselves on the scale of how outward they are, and then they ask them to rate their coworkers and the people they work with. They will almost always rate themselves to be more outward than their colleagues by about 20%. It's significant. They call that the self-deception gap. This idea that we often think of that we are better than the people that are around us, that we are more outward and caring of others. And but the truth is that the organization is made up of all those same individuals. And so imagine how much more collaborative and impactful and connected and engaged a company can be if they are truly outward and connecting and caring about each other, rather than just every individual trying to get just their crap done. I mean, that's some of this stuff from a mindset perspective. We can start talking about engagement, retention, attracting people, and building a meaningful culture on an organizational level, stemming from some of the mindset principles that we can talk about there. So, yeah.
Something I want to share with you guys is a book. I'll drop the Amazon link here in the chat box. One of my coaches from, I would say, decade ago, at least, maybe like 12 years ago, Sally Hogshead, book called one of her books called How the World Sees You. So if you're wondering how you're being perceived by others, that would be a great book to read. Her main website is howtofascinate.com. So ultimately, you want to see how people view you, like who you are from from other people's point of view. Because one of the best quotes that I'll never forget is that we're not who we think we are who other people think we are. And then I'm not who I think I am to Jeff. I'm what Jeff thinks, who Jeff thinks I am. To O'Reilly, I'm what O'Reilly thinks who I am. So it's every single person. To Farhad is the same thing. Whatever Farhad thinks of me, I'm that person to him. So then now we have unlimited versions of ourselves. You know, if there's 7 billion people on the planet, there are 7 million versions of me, potentially. You know, so there's a lot of things you can learn about understanding how you're being perceived and graduating to a level that now you're improving the way you come across. So ultimately how to fascinate other people. There's lots to learn, lots of fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Since we're talking books, I dropped in one just talking about, this comes from the Arbinger Institute, talking about the inward-outward mindset, called Leadership and Self-Deception. By the way, if you're ever recommending that to someone, it's probably like, the title may, they say, hey, I think you're really self-deceived. You might want to read this book. The thing with this change is, again, we're always starting with ourselves. We're not prescribing or pointing fingers at others. We're pointing it at ourselves to say, hey, I can change and improve here, and look for opportunities to do that. So, yeah. Thanks so much for everyone for being here. Any other questions? Yeah, John's saying, I guess by nature we're inward, looked after ourselves, and in some ways, it makes plenty of sense. Then train to become more outward as we grow and learn from school or mentors. Just my opinion. Can be. Sometimes we can be trained to be quite inward as well. Depends on the environment that we're around and in, and also how intentional we've been about developing those mindsets. If we think about just success at all costs, or if we've taught ourselves to also put ourselves down, that's another way to go inward. It's not just being selfish, like I'm better than everyone else. Sometimes we can feel worse than everyone else and put everyone else on a pedestal. That's also being inward. Not seeing everyone as equal humans and everyone who cares. Caring about ourselves, some of the self-care stuff that Nader was talking about, that is an outward way of doing that. But we're doing that from a place we need to take care of ourselves so that we can help and serve other people. It's not inherently 100% selfish. It also can be quite unselfish to do that so that we can help and serve others, right? So again, it's not just what you do, but why you do it, and the underlying mindset that drives the success of it.
Yeah, great explanation. It is the why. You got to understand your why. Because one of the best things you can do for others is to be fully selfish. One of the best things you can do for your family is to do things for you, to eat well, sleep well, exercise, meditate, show up to sessions like this, learn from everybody, observe a 7-year-old and learn from that person, observe a 70-year-old and learn from that person, consume, educate, learn. So on the surface, on paper, they might, your daily schedule may look like you're selfish. You're doing everything for you. You're not going to the food, to the neighborhood shelter, giving out bowls of hot soup, helping the homeless. You're not at the community center teaching people what. So it's like, again, on the surface, on paper, black and white, certain things look inward or, selfish. Certain things look outward, but if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you realize that you gotta be able to serve yourself to be ready to serve others. So a lot of times you hear, you want to make sure that your cup is full so you can pour into others. If your cup is empty, then you got nothing. You got no time, energy, or, nothing to give others. Yeah. So, do more for yourself so you can do more for others.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks so much for being here and participating. We really appreciate this. Any other final questions or thoughts before we wrap up tonight? Okay. Well, just a final thank you to Nader and everyone else for being here. And
thanks, everyone.
Wish all of you nothing but continued success. And please reach out to both of us if we can help and support you on your journey. We'd love to do that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.